It was a typical Friday morning at Lincoln High School in Pineville, Georgia, a small town where everyone knew each other, and doors were often left unlocked. The gymnasium was packed, buzzing with the chatter of parents and students alike for the annual Heroes Day Assembly, an event meant to honor local law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs, and a few standout students. The air was thick with excitement, mingling scents of freshly polished floors, perfume, and the sweet aroma of cinnamon rolls from the cafeteria. 15-year-old Marcus Thompson stood near the front, hands clasped nervously in front of him. He wore a freshly pressed button-up shirt and khakis that still bore the faint marks from the store's tags. His hair was neatly cut, a $40 investment from his uncle, and he felt both excited and a little apprehensive. Though he was generally a straight-A student, known for his involvement in debate and chess, today felt different. His mother, Angela, had given his hand an extra squeeze when she dropped him off, her voice laced with an uncharacteristic seriousness, as she told him to be careful. He brushed it off. What could possibly go wrong at a school assembly? As the principal, Mr. Carter, approached the microphone, the crowd hushed, anticipation hanging in the air. "Thank you all for being here," he began, a nervous smile on his face. "Today, we are honored to recognize our brave community heroes, starting with Sheriff Ryan Baxter." A polite round of applause erupted, a few parents standing to clap, while students, especially those whose parents worked in law enforcement, cheered a bit louder. Sheriff Baxter stepped forward, his presence commanding. With broad shoulders, a buzz cut, and mirrored sunglasses, he walked with an air of authority that demanded attention. "Thank you," he said, removing his shades. "When I was invited to this event, I knew it was important to be here because you all represent the future of our community. Leadership is built on discipline, respect, and knowing your place in society." Some parents nodded in agreement, their faces filled with pride, while a few teachers exchanged glances that hinted at unease. Baxter continued, "In my day, we were taught to stand when elders entered a room. We didn't talk back, and we certainly didn't change history to suit our feelings." That last line hung in the air like a heavy weight, and Marcus felt his brow furrow. He could sense the tension in the room building as Baxter smirked, clearly enjoying the attention. "Some people today want to paint a picture of our country filled with villains, claiming that law enforcement is always wrong. They believe that slavery built this nation, not hard work." Before he could think, Marcus raised his hand, his voice steady and respectful as he spoke up. "Excuse me, sir, but what you said about slavery isn't accurate. Historical evidence shows it was a fundamental part of our economy, especially in the South." "To say otherwise," Baxter cut him off, his voice low and slow, dripping with condescension. "Boy, nobody asked for a lecture." The air became thick with tension. Marcus could feel every eye in the gym turning toward him, the murmurs of disbelief rippling through the crowd. His heart raced, but he held his ground. "I'm not lecturing," he replied softly. "I just think it's important to speak the truth." With laughter echoing nervously in the background, Baxter took a step toward him, looming close enough for Marcus to feel the sheriff's presence bearing down on him. "You think you care about the truth?" he sneered. "You sure you're not just trying to be a smart mouth?" "No, sir," Marcus replied, trying to maintain his composure. "I'm simply pointing out what you said isn't correct." Suddenly, the sound of a slap rang through the gym like a gunshot, startling the crowd into silence. The sheriff had struck Marcus across the face, sending his glasses flying. Gasps erupted, a wave of shock washing over the attendees. Parents whispered in disbelief, some fumbling for their phones to record the scene unfolding before them. As the gym buzzed with chaos, a voice broke through the noise, clapping slowly, deliberately, demanding attention. It was Angela Brookshire, a local official entering the gym with a calm, confident demeanor. Her presence instantly shifted the atmosphere, drawing the eyes of everyone present, including the sheriff, who seemed taken aback. This moment was just the beginning of a confrontation that would shake the foundation of their small town. Stay tuned to witness how the values of truth and courage can challenge the status quo and inspire change in unexpected ways. As the echoes of the slap faded, an uncomfortable silence enveloped the gymnasium, punctuated only by the muffled gasps of disbelief from the audience. Marcus stood frozen, his heart racing, the sting of the sheriff's blow still resonating on his cheek. He could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on him, each one filled with shock, confusion, and a mix of sympathy and fear. Some parents instinctively reached for their children, while teachers exchanged worried glances, unsure of how to react. Sheriff Baxter, regaining his composure, turned back to the microphone, brushing off the incident as if it were a mere inconvenience. "That's enough of this nonsense," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "This is a place for respect, and if you can't understand that, you don't belong here." His tone was condescending, as if he was dismissing a mere child's tantrum, rather than addressing a serious issue. In the back of the gym, Angela Brookshire, the local official who had entered during the chaos, stepped forward. Her presence was commanding, and the crowd instinctively quieted as she approached the stage. "Excuse me, Sheriff," she said, her voice steady and authoritative. "What just happened here is not just a misunderstanding. You've crossed a line." Baxter's expression shifted, his bravado faltering momentarily under her gaze. "I was maintaining order," he replied defensively, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "Maintaining order?" Angela echoed, her voice rising with intensity. "You just assaulted a student for speaking the truth. This is not a matter of discipline. It's a matter of abuse of power." The crowd murmured in agreement, the tension in the room thickening as they began to realize the gravity of the situation. Marcus, still reeling from the slap, felt a surge of courage as he caught Angela's eye. She nodded at him, a silent show of support, and it ignited something inside him. "I wasn't trying to be disrespectful," he said, finding his voice amidst the chaos. "I just wanted to speak up, because I care about the truth." As the audience absorbed his words, the atmosphere shifted. Parents began to whisper among themselves, some expressing their outrage, while others were still grappling with the shock of what had just happened. A few students stood with their phones raised, capturing the unfolding drama, their expressions a mix of disbelief and admiration for Marcus's bravery. Angela continued, "We are here to celebrate our heroes, not to witness an act of violence against a child for daring to challenge misinformation. This is a moment for us to reflect on what leadership truly means. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves, not silencing them." The sheriff's face flushed with anger, and he took a step back, clearly uncomfortable with the mounting scrutiny. Marcus felt a swell of support from those around him, the energy in the gym shifting from shock to solidarity. Some parents began to clap quietly, while others joined in, their applause growing more fervent as the realization set in that this was not just a moment of conflict, but a critical turning point. As the clapping grew louder, Baxter's composure cracked further, and he stepped away from the podium, retreating into the shadows of the gym. The crowd's response was a powerful reminder of the strength found in unity and the importance of standing up against injustice. This confrontation was just the beginning. The ripple effects of this event would soon spread far beyond the walls of Lincoln High. Keep watching to see how one act of courage can ignite a community and inspire others to stand up for what is right, even in the face of adversity. The tension in the gymnasium was palpable as the applause for Angela Brookshire echoed off the walls, each clap resonating with a mix of defiance and support. Marcus stood still, processing the whirlwind of emotions surging through him: shock, fear, and an unexpected sense of empowerment. The slap had been painful, but it was the silence that followed that stung even more. He glanced around the room. Some parents looked horrified, while others were visibly uncertain about how to react. As Sheriff Baxter retreated further from the stage, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The once celebratory event had transformed into a scene filled with outrage and confusion. Angela, still commanding attention, moved closer to Marcus, her expression serious yet supportive. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, concern etched on her face. Marcus nodded, though he could feel his heart racing. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. The reality of what had just happened began to sink in. He had stood up against authority, and while he had expected some backlash, he never imagined it would escalate to violence. The room buzzed with whispers as attendees processed the unfolding drama. "Did you see that?" one mother exclaimed to her friend, her voice a mixture of disbelief and anger. "What kind of example is that for our kids?" Others joined in, expressing their outrage. "Should be removed from his position," shouted a father from the back, his voice cutting through the murmurs. "This isn't just about Marcus. It's about all of us." Angela took a step back from Marcus, addressing the crowd, her voice ringing clear. "This is a moment of reckoning for our community. We must hold our leaders accountable for their actions. This is not just about one incident. It's about the message it sends to our children about respect, truth, and standing up for what is right." As she spoke, the crowd began to rally around her words. People stood and clapped, igniting a wave of support that surged through the gym. Marcus felt a warmth spread through him. He was not alone. The voices of support washed over him, and he realized that he had sparked something much larger than himself. In the corner, some students huddled together, whispering excitedly, "Did you see him stand up to the sheriff? That was incredible!" one girl exclaimed, her eyes wide with admiration. "I can't believe he actually did that." Meanwhile, teachers exchanged glances, the weight of the situation heavy on their shoulders. Miss Thompson, Marcus's history teacher, stepped forward, her face resolute. "This is a teachable moment for all of us," she declared. "We need to discuss the importance of truth in history and the bravery it takes to stand up for it." As the crowd continued to buzz with energy, Sheriff Baxter stood off to the side, his face a mask of frustration and embarrassment. He had expected applause, perhaps even cheers, but instead, he was met with a collective rejection of his authority. The power dynamics had shifted, and he could feel it. Angela turned back to Marcus, offering him a reassuring smile. "You did well, Marcus. You stood up for what you believe in, and that takes real courage." Marcus felt a sense of pride swell within him, but he also understood the weight of the moment. He had opened a door, and now it was up to the community to walk through it. This incident would spark conversations that needed to happen, conversations about respect, truth, and the courage to speak out against injustice. As the assembly came to a close, the energy in the room was electric. The crowd was no longer just an audience. They were a community, ready to engage in difficult discussions and demand accountability. Stay tuned to witness how this pivotal moment can inspire a community to unite for change and advocate for the truths that must be acknowledged. In the days following the assembly, the town of Pineville found itself in a state of unrest. The incident between Marcus Thompson and Sheriff Ryan Baxter had sent shockwaves through the community, dividing residents into two distinct camps. As news of the slap spread, opinions flared across social media platforms, coffee shops, and school hallways, igniting heated debates that could be heard echoing through the streets. At Lincoln High, the atmosphere was tense. Students gathered in clusters, discussing the events that had transpired. Some expressed admiration for Marcus, calling him a hero for standing up to authority. "He's brave for speaking the truth," one girl asserted, her voice filled with conviction. "We need more people like him who are willing to challenge the status quo." However, not everyone shared her sentiment. A group of students argued that Marcus had crossed a line. "He shouldn't have interrupted the sheriff," one boy insisted, shaking his head. "You don't talk back to adults like that. It's disrespectful." The tension in the air was palpable as the two groups faced off, each passionately defending their viewpoints. The divide extended beyond the school walls. In the local coffee shop, patrons engaged in heated discussions over their morning brews. That boy had no right to disrespect a law enforcement officer, a middle-aged man declared, his brow furrowed in disapproval. "We were raised to respect our elders, not question them." Across the room, a woman countered, "But he was speaking the truth." How can we teach our kids to stand up for what's right if we don't support them when they do? The conversation quickly escalated, with voices rising and tempers flaring, reflecting the deep-seated divisions within the community. The online discourse was even more explosive. In local Facebook groups, arguments raged over the incident. Comments ranged from supportive messages praising Marcus's bravery to harsh criticisms labeling him a troublemaker. "He should have known better," one commenter wrote. "Kids these days think they can speak their minds without consequences." Another retorted, "The real issue is the sheriff's abuse of power. We need to hold him accountable." As tensions mounted, the school board called an emergency meeting to address the uproar. Parents, teachers, and community members packed the room, eager to voice their opinions. The superintendent opened the meeting with a statement that felt carefully crafted to appease everyone. "We regret the incident that occurred on school grounds and are committed to a full investigation," he announced, avoiding any mention of names or accountability. The room buzzed with murmurs, some parents nodding in agreement, while others shook their heads in discontent. "We need to take a stand," Charlene, Marcus's mother, spoke up, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "My son was assaulted for telling the truth. Silence is complicity, and we cannot let this go unaddressed." As the meeting progressed, emotions ran high. Teachers exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to approach the situation. Some were afraid to speak out, while others found the courage to advocate for change. "We need to teach our students about the importance of standing up for what is right," Miss Thompson urged, her voice rising above the crowd. "This is a pivotal moment for our school and community." Outside the meeting, the tension was palpable, with reporters gathering to capture the unfolding drama. News vans lined the street, and cameras rolled as parents and students exited, their faces a mixture of concern and determination. The community was at a crossroads, grappling with issues of respect, justice, and the courage to speak out against authority. As the sun set over Pineville, the divide between those who supported Marcus and those who defended the sheriff grew deeper. The echoes of their arguments lingered in the air, a reminder that change was not just necessary, it was inevitable. Continue to follow the unfolding events and see how a community grapples with the complexities of truth, justice, and the importance of standing united in the face of adversity. As the controversy surrounding the incident at Lincoln High continued to simmer, the town of Pineville prepared for a pivotal town hall meeting, an opportunity for residents to voice their opinions and seek accountability for the events that had transpired. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. People were eager to express their thoughts, and emotions ran high. The gymnasium, where the assembly had taken place just days earlier, was now filled to capacity with concerned citizens, eager to make their voices heard. Mayor David Reynolds stood at the front of the room, wiping the sweat from his brow as he surveyed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady but slightly strained. "I understand that our community is facing a difficult situation, and I want to assure you that we are here to listen and discuss how we can move forward together." As he spoke, murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience, but there were also skeptical glances exchanged. Charlene, Marcus's mother, sat in the third row, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and anxiety. She was determined to speak up, to ensure that her son's experience was not dismissed as a mere misunderstanding. "I sent my son to school to learn, not to be assaulted." Charlene's voice rang out, cutting through the crowd. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. What's complex about a grown man hitting a child? This is about accountability, and we cannot let this slide. A wave of applause erupted from the audience, and Charlene felt a surge of support. Others stood, echoing her sentiments. "That's right! We need to hold the sheriff accountable!" shouted a father from the back, his fists clenched in anger. The energy in the room shifted, the tension transforming into a collective determination to demand justice. Mayor Reynolds attempted to regain control. "I appreciate your passion, but we need to approach this matter with reason and understanding. Sheriff Baxter has served our community for years." "That doesn't excuse his actions," someone interrupted, their voice filled with frustration. "You can't just brush this off because he's been here a long time." The mayor's expression faltered as the crowd's discontent grew louder. "I understand that emotions are running high, but we need to allow for due process." "Due process?" Charlene interjected, her voice rising in intensity. "What about Marcus's right to feel safe at school? What about the message we send to our children if we allow this to happen without consequence?" The audience erupted in applause again, many nodding in agreement. The mayor looked overwhelmed, struggling to manage the situation as the crowd continued to voice their concerns. Teachers, parents, and students all chimed in, sharing their thoughts on the importance of accountability and the need for a safe learning environment. As the meeting progressed, more voices joined the chorus demanding change. Miss Thompson, Marcus's history teacher, stood up, her face resolute. "This isn't just about Marcus. It's about every student in our school. We have a responsibility to teach them that their voices matter and that they can stand up against injustice." The mayor raised his hands to calm the crowd, but the energy was undeniable. "We will address this issue seriously," he promised, though his voice wavered under the mounting pressure. "I will work with the school board and law enforcement to ensure a thorough investigation." Charlene felt a mix of hope and skepticism. While she appreciated the mayor's words, she knew that actions mattered more than promises. The crowd began to quiet, but a sense of unity lingered in the air. This meeting had ignited a fire within the community, a determination to advocate for change and to ensure that such an incident would never happen again. As the meeting drew to a close, the crowd began to disperse, but conversations continued outside the gym. Parents hugged their children tightly, students exchanged encouraging words, and the community began to forge a path toward healing and accountability. Either follow the developments in Pineville and see how the community comes together to demand justice and create a safer environment for all its members. In the wake of the intense town hall meeting, the atmosphere in Pineville began to shift. The community's outcry for accountability and change had resonated far beyond the gymnasium walls, igniting discussions and actions that would reshape their small town. As the days turned into weeks, the ripple effects of Marcus Thompson's confrontation with Sheriff Ryan Baxter continued to unfold, leading to significant developments. As news of the incident spread, local and national media outlets picked up the story, bringing attention to the issues of authority, respect, and the necessity of open dialogue in schools. Marcus, once a typical high school student, now found himself at the center of a national conversation about youth activism and civil rights. Letters of support poured in from across the country, with people praising his bravery and urging him to continue speaking out. Although the attention was overwhelming, Marcus felt a sense of purpose growing within him. Meanwhile, the Pineville School Board convened an emergency meeting to address the ongoing fallout from the incident. Concerned parents, teachers, and community members filled the room, eager to discuss how to ensure a safe and respectful environment for all students. The board recognized that they could no longer ignore the underlying issues that had been brought to light by Marcus's brave stand. During the meeting, the newly appointed school superintendent, Dr. Lisa Harper, addressed the attendees. "We have a responsibility to our students to create an environment where they feel safe to express themselves and challenge ideas," she said, her voice firm. "This incident has shown us that we must prioritize teaching respect, truth, and the importance of standing up against injustice." The board proposed several initiatives aimed at fostering a culture of open communication and accountability. They introduced a new curriculum that emphasized the importance of historical accuracy and critical thinking, as well as workshops on respectful discourse and conflict resolution. Teachers were encouraged to create safe spaces for students to voice their opinions, ensuring that everyone felt heard and valued. In the midst of these changes, The school also launched a student-led leadership council, with Marcus elected as one of its first members. This council aimed to empower students to take an active role in shaping their school environment and addressing issues that mattered to them. Marcus felt a mix of pride and responsibility as he stepped into this new role, understanding that his voice could help influence positive change. As the weeks progressed, community members began to see the tangible impacts of their collective efforts. The school held assemblies focused on discussions about respect, kindness, and the importance of standing up for one another. Teachers, inspired by Marcus's actions, began to incorporate discussions about social justice into their lesson plans, encouraging students to engage thoughtfully with complex issues. Meanwhile, Sheriff Baxter faced mounting pressure. Following the community's demands for accountability, he was placed on unpaid administrative leave, pending an investigation into the incident. The sheriff's office issued a statement acknowledging the need for a review of their policies regarding interactions with students and the importance of maintaining a safe environment in schools. In the heart of Pineville, change was palpable. The community had come together in a way that they had never experienced before. Conversations that had once been taboo were now being openly discussed, and residents began to recognize the power of their voices. As they moved forward, it became clear that this was not just a response to a single incident, but a commitment to fostering a culture of respect and accountability that would benefit future generations. As Marcus stood at the forefront of these changes, he felt a renewed sense of hope. The courage to speak up had not only transformed his life, but had also sparked a movement within his community. A movement that championed truth, respect, and the power of standing up for what is right. Continue to follow the developments in Pineville as the community works together to create a brighter future, reminding us all of the impact one voice can have when it dares to speak the truth. As the weeks rolled on, the changes in Pineville began to solidify. The community had rallied around Marcus Thompson's brave stance against Sheriff Ryan Baxter, creating an atmosphere where open dialogue and accountability were not just encouraged, but expected. The school's initiatives to foster a respectful and inclusive environment were gaining traction, and the conversations that had once been fraught with tension were now becoming more constructive. Marcus found himself grappling with his newfound role as a leader. He was no longer just a student. He had become a symbol of courage and change for many. The student-led leadership council met regularly, brainstorming ways to engage their peers and promote a culture of respect and understanding. They organized events and discussions that addressed not only the incident with the sheriff, but also broader issues such as racial equality and the importance of civic engagement. One day, during a council meeting, Marcus shared his thoughts with his peers. "We've started something important here," he said, his voice steady. "But we can't stop now. We need to make sure our voices continue to be heard, not just in our school, but in our community." His words resonated with the group, igniting a renewed sense of purpose among them. They began planning a community forum where residents could come together to discuss their experiences and share ideas for further change. Meanwhile, the investigation into Sheriff Baxter's actions was ongoing. As pressure mounted from both the public and the media, the sheriff remained largely silent, his absence speaking volumes. The town was eager to see accountability, and many residents felt that justice was long overdue. The community's commitment to standing up for what was right was palpable, and people were determined to ensure that their voices would not be silenced. Then came the day of the community forum, an event that had been months in the making. The gymnasium at Lincoln High was once again filled to capacity, but this time the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of unity and purpose. People from all walks of life gathered, ready to engage in meaningful conversations. Marcus stood at the front, looking out at the crowd, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. As he addressed the audience, he spoke from the heart. "I didn't expect to be here today, but I realized that speaking up for the truth is essential," he said. "What happened to me was not just an isolated incident. It was a reflection of larger issues in our society. We must continue to challenge injustice wherever we see it,
and we must support one another in that journey. The audience listened intently, and as Marcus finished, applause erupted. His words had struck a chord, inspiring others to share their own stories of struggle and resilience. One by one, community members stepped up to the microphone, recounting their experiences and expressing their hopes for a more just and equitable Pineville.
The forum was a resounding success, and it marked a turning point for the community. The conversation sparked by this event laid the groundwork for ongoing initiatives and collaborations among residents, educators, and local leaders. It became clear that the courage to speak out had not only transformed Marcus's life, but had also ignited a movement for change in Pineville. In the midst of this transformation, Marcus still faced challenges. He occasionally struggled with anxiety, especially when confronted with reminders of the incident. However, he found comfort in the support of his friends, family, and the community that had rallied around him. He learned that it was okay to feel vulnerable, and that asking for help was a sign of strength. As the sun set on Pineville, the town felt different, more alive, more connected. The community had taken a stand, not only for Marcus, but for every person who had ever felt silenced. They understood now that change begins with one voice, and that each of them had the power to make a difference. Moving forward, Marcus was determined to continue advocating for truth and justice. He knew that the journey was far from over, but he felt empowered by the knowledge that he was not alone. Together, they would build a future where respect and understanding prevailed, reminding everyone that courage often comes from the quietest voices in the room. Let this story inspire you to speak up and take action in your own community. Whether it's through advocacy, education, or simply listening, each of us has the power to create change.